Let's get into my juicy previous relationship. And I hope it serves you as a lesson. If you start noticing those patterns within yourself as you're in a relationship, let that be a major sign for you to leave. The relationship lasted like 3 years. Who I was before that relationship and who I was after that relationship are two completely different people. And I would love to say, oh my God, I grew up so much. I'm so much better now, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, now, after we broke up and now I'm in this relationship, yes, I'm a better version of myself. But when I just left that relationship, I was the worst fucking version of myself. I was actually disgusting, guys, because I started noticing things about myself which I hated. And I think that should be the biggest sign for you. If you start noticing patterns in yourself which you don't like, you have to leave, because you start doing psychotic things. Don't judge anybody, because karma will check how you will act in those situations. I think I'm finally ready to tell you the tea of what happens in my previous relationship. Many asked not to tell this. I'm not gonna get into the juicy details, but I think you will understand the picture pretty well. Let's start with something basic. What is cheating? For some people, cheating is when your partner has sex with somebody. For others, it's liking an Instagram picture. We got into that relationship. He wasn't my normal type. I knew that I wasn't his type either. Usually, the men I dated before him were like those business bros who were very much into work. They had like cool sense of humor. They were like finance bros. And he was so different, of course. He was like very creative, but at the same time, he had like a strong character. And the thing about me is that I'm a very disciplined person. I'm very disciplined and I'm very much of a homebody. I wake up at 5 a.m., I go to the gym. I was so focused on my career. And at times, I thought that like I'm a pretty boring person. I'm pretty introverted. I know that by my social media, you probably wouldn't be able to say that, but I'm a pretty introverted person. And I do not like parties. I do not like going out. Because I'm from Ukraine, I did all of that when I was from 14 to 18, and that was more than enough for me. I did it because everybody else was doing it and because it was cool. But it was never my personality. I just tried to fit in. And then when I experienced college and when I started working, I was like, I know that I do not enjoy parties. I know that I don't enjoy going to the clubs. That's not my vibe. But he was so different and he was so cool and he would constantly try to bring me somewhere. And at first I enjoyed it. I'm getting out of my comfort zone. But then with time, he adapted a lot to my lifestyle, which was probably like jail for him. Some time passed by. And I don't remember what happened before that, but we already had trust issues. And one time, he gave me his phone. And I did something I'm not proud of, as every girl says, before she went through his phone. Here's the thing, girls. If there's one advice I can give you, is don't go through his shit unless you are willing to leave the exact same fucking day. If you're not willing to leave today, pack your shit and leave, then don't go through his phone. Because in the end of the day, what you end up doing, you go through that shit. At first it's justified because in the beginning you're like, this is just a misunderstanding, he didn't know my boundaries, blah, blah, blah. You come up with an excuses. But what happens internally is that now the trust is done. Like if you already have a desire to go through your partner's phone, which you should never do. I would love to say that was the only time I ever did this. I did it through our entire fucking relationship. And I didn't recognize myself when I was doing this. But I shit you not, I will get to the story, which is in the end when a voice in my head told me to ask him to do one thing and showed. Let's not jump ahead. I had his phone. He was in the other room and I decided to go on his Instagram and check his activity, meaning to see what pictures he liked. Back then, what he was telling me, I never asked him to do that. He was telling me that. He was like, I only like your pictures. I only like pictures of you and my guy friends. And it made me feel good in the moment. I was like, that's so nice, thank you. For some fucking reason, I decided to go to his activity. And what I find out is that he indeed likes his boys' pictures, my pictures, and pictures of one more girl. I was like, who is that? And back then I didn't know who it is. But I go on her page, and guys, the worst part of it is that she's probably one of the most stunning women I've ever seen. And I see that she follows him too. I don't remember what happened after that. I confronted him about it. I didn't tell him that I went through his shit. I lied that I found out some other way, which is complete bullshit. Oh, you know what happened? Why I already didn't trust him? Is because when we were apart, I went on my Instagram Explorer and I saw a picture of him with another girl. And then I went on his tagged pictures and he hid it. Later I found out that I was not wrong about that girl. And I would constantly find out like more and more things about her. But every time I felt like it's not that bad. I'm just being insane. I'm making things up. Oh, just so you understand, I later found out they had a fling. They were like a thing before. And apparently there was some fight about this girl with his previous girlfriend as well. So I was like, oh, so this girl is like going through his life like very consistently. So I kept on telling myself that I'm fucking insane. And we kept on being together because I was like, well, it's just this one small inconvenient detail. But apart from that, everything is great. What happened next is the war has started in my country. On top of that, my best friend died. I was so outside of my comfort zone, and I knew that my relationship back then was already shitty, but he was such a support system to me back then that I was like, even if it's a shitty relationship and I'm already so outside of my comfort zone, I cannot let go of this relationship. I simply didn't have energy to end it. I know that it sounds stupid, but I was so overwhelmed with the war in my country. And if you guys are from Ukraine, or if you're from a country which is currently going through a war, and unfortunately there are a lot of countries like this, you understand that when something like this happens in your country, you're online 24/7. On top of all of this, there were huge problems with my immigration. If you're an immigrant, you know how much it impacts your mental health. It was actually a pretty dark time in my life. And apart from all of this, I was also in this paranoid relationship. He would often use my family against me because my family has such strong family values. My family is so traditional. And he would be like, do you understand that things like this happen only in your family? Everybody else is different. It's normal to be different. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I'm expecting from a man something which is unrealistic. Maybe only my dad is like this. Maybe the rest of the men are not like this. Maybe it's just what I have to accept. And I always thought, if I feel so bad when he does it to me, and I'm at my prime right now, I'm young, I'm hot, I'm beautiful, what is he gonna do and how is he gonna make me feel when I'm 40, when I'm 50? How is it gonna make me feel? I knew that if I were to end up with him, I would have an absolutely miserable life. And the second sign which I noticed in this relationship, which was a hugest red flag to me in my eyes, and it's even shameful for me to admit this, but since we're confessing here, I noticed that I started hating women. I'm the type of person who comes from a family with my mother, who's my role model, my two older sisters. I was in the national team. I was the captain of girls' team. I was always surrounded by women. I always loved women. I admired women. I noticed that I started hating women because in that relationship, I started feeling like every woman who passes us by, every woman when he scrolls, all of them are my competition. He would make me feel insecure, obviously, because he was obsessed with all of those gorgeous women. Back then, I thought that I'm good looking. And then at some point, I was like, I can't compete with those girls. They're literally flawless. And even when I try to put my best outfit, I do my best makeup, I do my hair, I remember how I was like trying to prepare for an event or something. And then I looked so beautiful. And I remember I looked at myself and I was like, you look like a fucking Walmart version of those girls. And do you know how I accepted this? By purposely making myself uglier. If you go on my old TikToks and you would see how I would record them, I would never put any makeup on. I would always record them after the gym. Thank God, at least I kept on going to the gym. That was the only thing which was always consistent in my life. I would be sweaty, my hair would be dirty, I would wear a hood up all the time. And that's how I record, because I was like, yeah, people are not gonna like me online for being pretty because I'm not Instagram level pretty. I don't think like this about myself right now, by the way. I'm just explaining how I was thinking in the process. And I was like, the only thing which can help me to stand out is my thought process. So I'm gonna be an ugly genius. So I stopped putting any effort into myself because I was like, I cannot realistically compete with them. Therefore, I'm removing myself from the competition in general. I feel so bad for my old self because I so convinced myself that I'm ugly. At some point, I stopped taking pictures of myself. Anyways, we kept on dating. And of course, right now, I'm only sharing the bad parts. But if you stay in a relationship, you probably know, unless it's a toxic, abusive relationship, you know that there are also a lot of great memories. There are like a lot of good things which hold you there and make it so hard to leave. I couldn't let go. And you know why? Because as all of this was happening, I was like, if I lose any type of stability, right now. And he was the only stable thing in my life, once again, because there was war, because I lost my best friend, because of immigration. I was like, if I lose a bad, stable thing, I'm gonna fucking fall apart. Then it was my birthday. Oh my God, how old I am? I'm 28. It was my 27th birthday. Guys, it was a little more than a year ago, all of this. I will not tell you the full details, but I think you will get the picture. On my previous birthday, I decided to gather all of my closest friends in Bodrum. I rented a villa. Before I met up with all of my friends, I met up with him. And he took me on like some trip, whatever. A day before everybody arrives, we're already close to the villa, but we're staying in a different location. And we go on some rooftop bar. And I look back at my pictures from that time, because I would try to work on myself. I was taking more pictures. But look at this picture. This was taken like one day before my birthday. And every time I look at it, I feel like there is no soul behind my eyes. We were sitting at the rooftop and I had spiritual experience, which I've only heard of from other people. And every time they would tell me something like this, I'm like, that's bullshit. Guys, I shit you not, that happened to me. And a voice in my head tells me, ask him if he has a second Instagram. Back then, I knew that he's doing some things which I don't like, but I was like, okay. But I never thought that he would be doing anything outrageous, okay? So I look him in the eyes, and I'm like, do you have a second Instagram page? And I think he thought that I already knew about this. So he thought that there is no point in lying. So he tells me yes. And as I hear yes, my heart drops, guys. I feel intense anxiety because I understand now what is happening. I tell him, give me your phone. And he like refuses to give me his phone. And I was like, give me your phone. So I take his phone. Here's me holding the phone and his arm is like this close. So I go on his second Instagram. I scroll through the feed and then I swipe to DMs and he like takes away my phone. And I'm like, oh shit. I had invited him from my birthday, but then also stupid. I invited him back because on my birthday, I didn't want to explain to all of my friends who have gathered there and to my parents why he's not there. Because I was like, I don't want to talk about this on my birthday. I want to finally fucking focus on myself. On that birthday, when everybody gathered, as I was talking to my friends, I was so happy. I was myself. I was acting cool. But when he would come up to me and he was like, you're talking to everybody but me. And I'm like, because there is nothing to talk about. I'm a strong believer that if you're doing something bad, you're probably not doing it with bad intentions. I would love to see the best in people, but that was just lying to myself at that point. And I just had to accept that I've been lying to myself for so long that it has to stop. The trip has finished and I had to fly to Saint-Tropez where I was interviewing Bobby. So I'm leaving and like the next day I'm interviewing him. It was like an interview post my breakup. Check it out if you're interested. I remember the last time I've ever saw him. And, we said goodbye to each other at the airport. And I remember how I passed TSA. And I would think when I would get to the boarding, I thought that I would fall apart. I thought that I'm going to be depressed. I thought I'm going to feel horrible. But you know what I felt instead? I felt relief. Because the worst thing which I was doing to myself was keeping myself in this undecisive period of time. The longer I couldn't commit to a decision of actually breaking up, the worse I was making myself feel. And I only started feeling good when I finally committed to this decision. I was not a saint in this relationship. I was a horrible fucking girlfriend. Every time we would have a major fight, I would threaten with a breakup. Every time we had a major fight, I was like, I'm done with you. I'm breaking up with you. I think he thought I'm doing this as a threat, but here's the thing. I know why I was doing this. Because each time when I would voice this, I sincerely hoped that I will have enough strength to leave, but I didn't. And each time after I was like, let's break up, and then I was like, no, I forgive you. I forgive you, let's get back together. And after each fight, I would feel worse and worse and worse. Because at some point I was thinking, well, if it happens second, third, fourth, 10th time, then I will get used to this. I will get used to this treatment. I will get used to this pain. But each time felt like more and more of a betrayal because after each fight, he would tell me, I will never do this again. And it was just fucking stupid to believe that, but I sincerely believed him. Girls, at this point, you cannot blame men because they've shown you who they are. It's now on you. If you're okay with him making you feel like fucking dirt, then stay until you can't handle it anymore. And then we broke up, and the first things I started doing, because of my parents, they helped me so much through this breakup. They spent so much time with me. I got back to my actual routine. I stayed consistent with the gym throughout this entire time, but I was like, now every morning, no matter what, 4:45 a.m. is my alarm, 5 a.m. I'm at the gym. I stopped drinking. I started reading again. I started having quality relationships with my friends, my family, and everybody else. There is a research which says that your happiness level depends on the quality of your relationships. It's not about how much money you have after a certain point. If you live a comfortable life, money no longer plays a role in your happiness. But what plays a huge role is how many quality relationships you have. And when I was in that relationship, I realized that I was not a good friend, because I take a huge pride in how good of a friend I am, because I remember my friends' birthdays. I always send them flowers. I'm never a type of person who will send you a text if I care about you. I will make sure to call your parents as well and to congratulate them if we're in this type of relationship. And the most important thing I did is I stopped stalking people, because comparison is the thief of joy. Because even after that breakup, I would still go on that girl's page. I was no longer in a relationship with that guy, but I was so emotionally attached to that girl for some reason that I just kept on stalking her. You know, there is an app which is called I'm Sober, and there you can write how many days you don't drink, you don't smoke, whatever. I did I'm Sober, so I don't go on her page. Do you understand how fucking insane it is? The moment I stopped doing all of that, I started having better relationships with women again. I stopped looking at them as my competitors. I stopped comparing myself to other women, and I started liking myself again. The moment you start focusing on yourself, I start understanding what I actually want in a relationship. That's how I ended up with my fiance. I figured out what definitely does not work for me. Can you see my... Guys, I hope you were not looking there. I was talking to my mom as I was going through a breakup. I was like, Mom, is there such a thing as a perfect person for you? Like, does it even exist? And my mom told me, Albina, I thought it's a fairy tale. I thought you always have to compromise. You have to sacrifice something, until I met your dad. And then I realized that there is such a thing as a perfect person for you. And you don't want to change a thing about him. Because often women look at men, if you're in your early 20s and you're dating for potential, then it's fine. But if you're in your late 20s and you look at him and you're like, oh, he could be A, B, C, D, you had 10 years to figure out who you are, okay? And that's not to say that people, when they're 30, 40, 50, 60, can't start a business and change their life. But this is an exception. Most of the time, who you see in your late 20s is who he's gonna be. So are you willing to be with this person if he never changes? And that's what we as women often do. We fall in love with an idea, with their potential, blah, blah, blah. Another amazing test, which my mom taught me, is that if your child would be just like your partner, let's say your children took 0 traits from you. If your children are just like your partner, would you be proud of them? And if the answer is no, that should be very telling. The most precious currency, because money is not backed up by anything, it's no longer backed up by gold, is attention. And attention is what? It's time. Because right now, all of the companies are competing for what? They're competing for your attention. How long is the retention rate of this video, for example? I'm competing for your attention. Thank you very much for being here. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment, because it helps our channel to get promoted. Everybody is competing for your attention. And if you're wasting this currency on people who do not deserve you, then I'm sorry to tell you this, but this is disrespect to yourself. And who am I to judge? I done this myself. And that's why I'm talking about this. Because I don't want you to go through the same things. Because the worst thing you can do to yourself is lose your mental peace, to lose your time. And guys, I know that I start sounding like my parents or your parents, but life is so freaking short. Thank you for watching this. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what topic you want me to discuss next. And as always, do whatever you want with this information.